The game is afoot, YouTube viewers, as Sherlock Holmes movie news from 2 different Sherlock Holmes films is on the menu, as well as some news from the Avengers Infinity War films, and possibly a new League of Extraordinary Gentlemen? Observe, if you will. If you haven't heard, a new Sherlock Holmes film is currently in production, but not Sherlock Holmes 3 with Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law. But instead, Sony Pictures will take a turn titling their adaptation Holmes and Watson, with Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly set to release in 2018. And if anybody doesn't want to feel old, do not listen to this next fact. The last time this comedic duo were together on screen was in 2008's Step Brothers. But how can this be, since Warner Brothers is making the Robert Downey Jr. version of history's most brilliant fictional detective? What gives Sony Pictures the right to make their own, as well as BBC's, CBS's, and everyone else's version in visual medium? Well, for those of you interested in such things, fun fact. The fiction of Sherlock Holmes is public domain, but more specifically under new court ruling you may write or use in visual medium, i.e. TV or film, that Sherlock Holmes was a cocaine-addicted martial arts aficionado cohabiting occasionally at 221B Baker Street with a friend called Dr. Watson, but not anything about Holmes' retirement or much of anything about Dr. Watson's own athletic background or second marriage. In fact, even the slightest mention is subject to copyright infringement. Sorry about that, but back to the films. We don't know much about this adaptation that director Ethan Cohen is in charge of, other than it will be set in a far more comedic light, and will be about a duo that faces off against enemies from across the globe. So it sounds like it'll be a film that is more of a series of short stories from Sherlock Holmes creator Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's original work, rather than any single story based on Doyle's work. Other notable actual British actors that have joined the cast include Ralph Fiennes, famous for his portrayal of Lord Voldemort in the Harry Potter series, as well as Hugh Laurie, famous for playing Gregory House on House. Unfortunately, Sony has kept their roles under wraps, but my own speculation can easily see the two playing major roles as villains in the film. But as far as the Robert Downey Jr. adaptation, not much work has been done on making a Sherlock Holmes 3, since actor RDJ is currently working on the set of Avengers Infinity War, which is expected to take about 9 months to complete, as the Russo brothers will be filming both Avengers Infinity Wars Part 1 and 2 back to back. And also, director of the previous 2 Sherlock Holmes films, Guy Ritchie, has been given the monumental task of being the director of an upcoming live-action Disney film in the Aladdin reboot. Needless to say, this is concerning, being that Downey and Ritchie are the 2 vital cogs that make the Sherlock Holmes films so desirable to watch. And well, an even bigger rumor in the works is that Sherlock Holmes films will be part of a shared universe.
And the game is on.
That's right, a possible shared universe with the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. You know, that one film that had a complete and utter disaster in 2003. Well, it won't be that Sean Connery League, but another reboot allegedly taking off during the 3rd Sherlock Holmes film. But remember, the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen is a DC Comics property, and DC's parent company is Warner Brothers, who makes the Sherlock Holmes films. So this news is far from just a shot in the dark. But about RDJ and Ritchie both being very busy, Warner Brothers has hired a huge ensemble to write a script for the 3rd Sherlock Holmes film, including Nicole Perlman, who wrote Guardians of the Galaxy and is working on a Captain Marvel script, Gary Whitta, who wrote Rogue One, and Geneva Dowart Robinson, who is writing Tomb Raider and Gotham City Sirens, just to name a few. So with these A-listers of the movie scriptwriting community, it's far more likely that Warner Brothers has something much bigger up their sleeves, especially given that they have to compete with Disney and Marvel. So here's a scary thought. It's hard to imagine that Robert Downey being away for 9 months to film Infinity Wars can't help but upset the folks at Warner just a little bit, since they happen to own DC Comics, and if they were to introduce RDJ's Sherlock into a DC Comics League of Extraordinary Gentlemen movie universe, that wouldn't be some sort of conflict of interest for Robert, and he would have no choice but to either be killed off as Sherlock Holmes, or have that role replaced entirely due to Marvel and DC's bitter rivalry. As well as Robert famously saying, "Fuck DC Comics" in an interview with Movie Hole when he was promoting Tropic Thunder. So I guess we'll have to see in 2018. Anyway, that's everything I have for your breaking movie news on Holmes and Watson and Sherlock Holmes 3. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe below. It's elementary after all. And tell me your thoughts on these movies, and tell me which of these films are you the most excited for. Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly's Holmes and Watson, RDJ's Sherlock Holmes 3, Avengers Infinity War Part 1 and 2, or the possibility of a reboot to the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. And don't forget, as always, this is 5 Things Explains Everything with the Fingabang Show. I'm out.